Pre-packaged responses are killing your chances of getting them back. Every week I see men and women who have wasted months chasing the perfect script, the perfect message, the magic line that will make their partner say, wow, you've changed. And the most dangerous part of this is that sometimes these lines work and things seem better for a little bit, only for things to fall apart not long after. Because what your partner responds to isn't really the script, guys. It's the hope behind it that things might get better. But of course they never do, because underneath those script, nothing about you has really changed. And I've seen thousands of my clients do the same. And that's what we're gonna unpack in this video. I'll show you why relying on pre-packaged responses destroys your credibility and destroys emotional safety, and what your partner actually looks for before she believes your changes is actually real. And I'm gonna show you too how to reprogram yourself to respond naturally without scripts, even under pressure. Because once you master this, you never need another magic sentence again. So let me show you exactly why prepackaged responses are one of the biggest mistakes that people make in their journey to bring their ex back, and what you can do instead. So like I said, prepackaged responses can work sometimes, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. That doesn't make it a good clock. And just because a script or a line gets a good reaction early on, doesn't mean it's actually creating trust and the actual safety that your partners are looking for. And that's why I see so many people come into my program after dropping out of others. Because they tried the just say this or just write this, and it backfires. Let me explain why that happens. Imagine here you're in a chess league, and right now your teammate is a bit bad, it's terrible. So you tell him, hey, look man, you need to get better. You're dragging the team down, you're dragging us down. So then he disappears for a while, and you assume that while he's disappearing, he's training hard to become a better chess player. But when he comes back, you realize that he hasn't actually learned any chess. He just memorized a bunch of moves. Picked up a book and memorized, let's say, the 50 popular openings. And then he memorized all the possible counters for those 50 openings. And he learned flashy tactics, but never actually learned how to become a better chess player. So in the next match, will he make some solid moves? Sure, maybe in the beginning, but is he a good chess player? Not even close, because the moment the game gets a bit unpredictable, he crumbles. And you, as the person playing against him, you see right through it. And that's exactly what's gonna happen with you and your partner. You might say the right thing once or twice. You might even look like you're changed for a little while. But if those changes aren't real, if you haven't done the internal work, you'll eventually run out of prepackaged responses. So you fall back into the old patterns, then your partner can really see that you crumbling for what it really is, a really cheap tactic. So now that you understand why prepackaged responses backfire, let me show you what real reconciliation actually looks like in practice. You need to understand that your partner doesn't need to see that you can make great chess moves once in a while or in the beginning of the game. She needs to see, and she needs to feel that you have become a great player at heart on the identity level. So you see, what makes someone great at chess, if you think about it, or any skill for that matter, tennis, whatever it is, it's not what he or she does when they have time to prepare, but it's really what they do when they're caught off guard, when they get curveballs, for example, when they get the tough resistances or tough challenges. For example, let's say that you're now playing against your friend, right? And again, this friend is terrible before, and he makes one great opening move. Will you think suddenly after that one move, oh my God, wow, he's amazing? From that one move? Of course not, right? What you'll do is you probably counter his first move with a strong move of your own and see how he does with that. And if he counters that second move with another great move, then cool. But still, there's not a lot of evidence here to prove that he's now some sort of chess grandmaster. So what you'll do is you need to giving him strong counter moves, more curveballs and so on. And only after you see that despite the strong counter moves, he's still making great moves to counter your counter, then after enough of this, you might think, you know what, that was surprisingly good. But again, it's just one game. You're gonna need to see a lot more games before you're convinced that, hey, this guy has to become a master. So after several more games though, you're probably gonna start to change your mind if he keeps making great move after great move, game after game. And that's the same thought process when it comes to changing how your partner fundamentally feels about you. If you really want to change your partner's mind about you, You must understand that it's not about you being able to say the perfect thing one time or a few times and look like you've got it all figured out. And it's not about how well you do during the planned interactions. This is about building trust. And that looks more like this. So you give your initial response, and that response will usually elicit more suspicions, more doubts, more resistance from your partner. And that's what we call in our program the paradox of change, or POC for short. And so once this first move is made, just like in the chess analogy, everything now becomes kind of fair game because you don't know what counter move they're going to make next, which means that for the second response here, your second response of how you lean into that counter move, the odds of you being able to use a prepackaged response now goes way down. But if you can respond on the fly without preparation, with a strong follow-up, you start to slowly plant seeds of your changes that this might be real this time, which is awesome. But again, that may not change their mind completely because there's still that possibility that you just got lucky, that this was one of the moves you had prepared for. So your partner's going to give you many more POC, many more tests in the form of challenges, doubts, her suspicions, and resistances are very likely here. But then you have the third move. And the odds of you being able to use a prepackaged response in this third move goes on even further. And so now if you stack another strong response on top of that, that's even better. And this cycle would then repeat until your partner, she, can see and feel that no matter what is thrown at you, you can still thrive. And with each and every thriving interaction and thriving counter moves you make, the doubt as to whether your changes are real or not starts to slowly dissolve. So clients always ask me, right, how long will this take for it to dissolve this negative bias? How many tests and how much doubt will I have to overcome? And that's a question I can never really answer because it really depends on how badly you've destroyed safety and trust in the past. But here's what I do know. If you use a prepackaged response and your partner pushes back with doubt, with hopelessness or suspicion, that pushback you get is not the loss, okay? Just like in chess, when your opponent counters your move, you haven't lost yet. That is actually just the game working as it should. If in that moment you collapse, you fall into this guilt tripping, this logic game, defensiveness or silence, that's when the real damage happens. That's when the loss happens. Because it's not the resistance that tells your partner who you are, right? It's how you respond to that resistance that shows up everything. This is crucial, guys. And here's what most people don't realize. Freezing up is just as damaging as saying the wrong thing. So for you to understand this, say that you've changed. So you say you've changed. And she says to you, I don't believe you. And you back off, you shut down, you spiral. When you shut down and you do nothing, all this does is actually confirm her deepest fear. She's gonna think, see, I knew it. You can't handle this. You haven't changed at all. And now that I called you out on it, you froze. So that's why relying on scripts makes you fragile. You're only as good as the next line you've memorized. And when that line runs out, so do you. And then people say, I lost because she told me it's hopeless. No, that's not why you lost. You lost because you believed in her hopelessness more than your own growth. So it wasn't her resistance that created your doubt. It was your doubt that created the loss in the first place. So how do you win? You win by thriving through these curveballs consistently, by showing again and again that your changes isn't just some surface level stuff. It's not rehearsed. Your changes are real, they're grounded, and it holds up under pressure and curveballs. And when your partner finally sees that your responses cannot possibly be scripted, cannot possibly be faked, that is when the trust starts to rebuild. So the question becomes, if prepackaged responses don't work, if they actually make us fragile, then what does work? Well, let me show you how you become great at the game itself, instead of just pretending to know the next move. So number one, we prioritize programming what we call a thriving mindset. In our program, this comes before anything else. And it's not just, and this is crucial, guys, it's not just stoicism or holding your frame, which to us is just a surviving mindset, clenching your asshole to keep your shit in. This thriving mindset is rooted in what we call PTSG, or post-traumatic stress growth. We all know post-traumatic stress disorder. This is growth. And this is really your ability to look at resistance and not just hold your shit in, but actually see it as something to lean into and thrive towards. Number two, we then want to couple this new mindset with what we call the frameworks. This is a collection of tried and tested conversational tools that you can use in conjunction together that act as a framework. Hence the name. This is a tool for your conversations and interactions, all of them going forward. And so with these, you can address and counter any and all interactions effectively. Now, number three, we practice and program them until we have made both the frameworks and the thriving mindset behind it part of our identity. They become second nature to us so that we don't have to think about doing the right thing anymore. We just do the right thing by default. It becomes effortless. It becomes obvious because it's just who we are. We're just exuding that new self. So I'll give you a quick look at what these frameworks backed by a thriving PTSG mindset looks like. And like I said, we don't pre-prepare anything here. So everything I say right now will be straight off the top of the noggin and also my heart. So imagine the scenario in which I've been taking some time to reflect and work on myself. Maybe I've joined this program and I'm doing the work. And I may go to my partner with the opening chess move and say, hey, I know I've been kind of I haven't been saying much recently, and I've been kind of spending a lot of time in my room, thinking and studying in my room. I want you to know that it's not because I'm just not caring about you or I'm brooding in my own room like I used to brood all the time. But really it's because I've been doing a lot of reflection on how I show up in this relationship. And I realize that I'm operating from a lot of insecurities, from a lot of pain that ends up hurting the people around me, including yourself. And the kids too, seems like, right? And worse, I don't even seem to be aware that I am hurting people. So the only reason why I've been locking myself away in my room is because I am, for the first time in my life, starting to learn and to be very honest with myself, I guess, and my own shortcomings, and doing a ton of introspection to really unearth a lot of this, you say, toxic stuff, so that I don't end up hurting people the way I did you in the past, and maybe even right now. So now that I made that opening move, my partner, with her layers of negative bias towards me, is gonna hear that and go through what we call paradox of change and feel a lot of doubt and suspicions around my intentions. So maybe she responds with, okay, cool, I don't give a shit. You can never get me back, right? Or maybe she responds with nothing and stonewalls me. And I see that though, right? Her stonewalling, her resistance through my program PTSG mindset. And I think to myself, awesome, right? Even though she's saying nothing is actually her expressing herself, and her lack of words right now and ability to express herself tells me actually a lot about the level of trauma and paranoia that I put her through. And I'll think to myself too, this is really good because how I respond to this will either confirm or start to undo a lot of these assumptions that she has on my intentions. So if I'm able to lead into resistance and thrive in the face of that resistance, I might follow up by saying something like, hey, no pressure to respond here. I realize that there may not be much more to talk about anymore between you and I. Again, I'm not saying I understand right now, not because I'm trying to sound like I do when I don't, but really I've realized that in the past, again, I've used to have this terrible habit of saying something good to elicit some response from you. And then when I don't get the response from you right away, I would make you feel really pressured and guilty to act or respond in the way that I want you to act or respond, which I bet feels like really terrible to be around, to be in a place like that. So for now, I just want to come from a different place where I don't want to add so much pressure on you like that. No matter what, I know that this is work I need to do with myself, and please don't feel pressured to have to believe me or come back or support me in this, because I had to do this, I realized, with or without your support. And I realize that now. So after I stack that second framework, who knows what she will respond on that counter move. So if I get another tough and challenging counter move though, I just repeat the same cycle. I go to my PTSD mindset, I stack another framework, and I just repeat this over and over again. And I can repeat this effortlessly because I've really programmed this stuff on that identity level. So think about how massive this is. If you look at it like tennis, a lot of other programs and most people, maybe even yourself, you're trying to win tennis by trying to master the serve and acing that serve. But if your serve gets returned with a curveball, with another hit, then oh well, you probably lose. And this is why most people have such low success rates in the long term. And this is not a very smart way to do this. But what we're saying instead is learn how to become a great tennis player. So yes, have a great serve, but when your serve leads to inevitable resistance, curveballs, and so on, you're able to internally PTSG, stack a strong response in return. In fact, the bigger the resistance I get, the further my positive response can move the needle. And this is why we often say no situation is too dire or too unique, because really, if you tell me a story that suggests you that you have a really big trauma, what I'm going to think is the bigger the trauma, the bigger the opportunity you have. And so the more you do this, the higher and higher your success rates become. And the only way to lose really is if you stop or crumble. And beyond that, you cannot lose. And this is why for every client we enroll, we literally are very, very confident to often guarantee their success. Because we know that, in fact, we've seen it many times, the greater you become at the internal shifts and the frameworks on the identity level, the more you can PTSG. And once you can PTSG like this, your partner can throw whatever trauma, whatever resistance your way, tell you she's hopeless, stonewall, whatever it is, you can use that to make you rise even higher, to plant better seeds. So let's bring this home. If you've been chasing the perfect line, if you've been hoping a single message or a script could undo months or even years of damage, now you understand why that approach always falls apart. Because reconciliation, guys, it's not about sounding right. It's about becoming someone new. It's not about winning with the first move. It's about showing again and again that you can stay grounded, calm, real, even when things don't go your way. So now in the next video, I want to show you what this looks like in real life. You'll meet a client who tried to use this prepackaged response and, like I said, made things so much worse. But once they took the path we just talked about, the internal shifts, the frameworks, the identity shifts, not only did they get their ex back, but they are able to build this kind of relationship that they used to think was impossible. And once you watch this next interview, I think you'll start to realize something very powerful, that if they can do it, you can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it too.